I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, Mr. Karati.
Mr. Accomando?
Present.
Mrs. Borelli?
Present.
Mr. Buffi?
Present.
Mr. Avison?
Here.
Mr. Quinn?
Here.
Mrs. Sanchez?
Present.
Ms. Sanchez, sorry. Mrs. Scannapieco?
Present.
Mrs. Zonarelli?
Present.
Mr. Buren?
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been sent to all members of the Board of Education and to the Bergen Record in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, 1975. Dr. Katz, your report, please.
First, I just want to, again, welcome our 3 new board members. Congratulations again on your appointment, and I know everybody at the table is looking forward to working with you, so welcome to the board.
Thank you.
I just want to remind everybody, on Thursday night here in this room, Chris Duval and Christine Steiner will be presenting on Park and Common Core. We've been sending a lot of notices home about that, so hopefully we'll get a good parent turnout. An update on CUSAC. As we anticipated, I've been talking each month about some changes that were going to occur in Trenton, and they did with a differentiated CUSAC process. So as we anticipated, we're only going to have an on-site visit for the instruction and program part of CUSAC. Our visit will be January 22nd. Chris and Christine, who I just spoke about, will be hosting that. By hosting, I mean showing the representatives from the Department of Ed around the district and sitting with them at a table and going through all of our documents and all of our processes and everything that we have in place. The reason that we have that as the only DPR that they'll be evaluating on site was because we know we have deficiencies in that area, and that is the only one where we fell below the score of 80 that was required to pass. Our hope, though, is that with everything that we have in place, that possibly our score would raise above that, and we're confident that next time we go through this in 3 years from now, that we will be in the places that we need to be. So, we knew this was going to happen. We've talked about it every month, where we were as far as instruction and program, and so now we're addressing those needs. So even though we fell here, we fell below with the score now, it's really a 3-year look back. And so as we look forward, we have everything in place that we need to have in place in order to make the corrections and improve the quality of education. So in that vein, our middle school has had a focus school designation for the last several years. And earlier in the year, I spoke and shared that we've been meeting all of our targets as far as our NJS scores go. We've been meeting all of the criteria within our school improvement plans. And our hope is that at the end of this year, we lose that designation. The Department of Ed has given us reason to believe that we will lose that designation at the end of this year. So we hope that it stays that way. Sometimes things change in Trenton often. And even though they said that to us in September, it doesn't always mean it's the case in June. At the same time, the good news to share is the RAC, the Regional Achievement Center, came through and they did their Cycle 2, which was basically their second evaluation this year of our school improvement plan. We had 4 SMART goals set at the beginning of the year, which were approved by the Board of Ed and then approved by the RAC and the Department of Ed. We've already met, after Cycle 2 to this point in the year, we've already met all 4 of our goals. So again, a good sign that we're doing all the right things, and certainly credit for that goes to John Lawler here in the high school, as well as everybody else, our staff and other school leaders that are involved in that. An update on the referendum. We have not yet met. Obviously, we're reassigning our committees tonight, so our Buildings and Grounds Committee has not yet met, but I did share with the full board an initial plan for our architect, and I just want to put that out there to people as well, so that one of the questions that came up at all the nights was, so if we approve this, when does everything start? And so things are already underway. Our architect has already put together a meeting with Ray and I, and again, we'll share that with our Buildings and Grounds Committee before it's official. But we separated projects into year 1 projects and year 2 projects. And essentially what we're hoping to do is all of the projects in year one, except for the auditorium here, the security upgrades, and the long school windows. So everything else that was in that referendum should get done year one. Year one would start July of 2015. So first to go out to bid is the roofs, and we actually already have that drawn up and out, and we'll be opening those bids on January 29th. Is that correct? Yes. January 29th. So we're in motion and ready to go and ready to get these projects done. And that's all my updates. And now I'd like to introduce Dave Rao, who is our Director of Special Services. Last year, this time, Dave came and did a presentation about kind of the state of special services in our district. And we heard a lot of things from board members and from people who are here in the public that the depth of information and the insight was as good as they've ever seen here in Saddlebrook. And over that last year, we've made a tremendous amount of progress. So I'm excited to have Dave here to share that, and I know Dave is too. And again, as I gave credit earlier to John Lawler in leading the improvements here in the middle school, Dave has done an outstanding job in leading our special services department from pre-K to 12. So we have Dave to thank for a lot of progress, and he's going to share that with you now.
Okay. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight. It was around this time last year that I was named interim supervisor for special services. And at that time, I identified a few key areas for improvement. So I'm really excited tonight to talk, number one, recap what those areas were last year. We're going to talk about the improvement made over the course of the year, where we're going, and the work that lies ahead. Now going back to the clicker, so until then I have to manually set. Okay, the three main issues that I spoke about last year, number one was the classification rate. I'm rounding up a little bit, but we were at nearly 25% classification rate last year, meaning that 1 out of every 4 students that came to Saddlebrook every school day was considered as having a disability. You'll hear me mention throughout this presentation, this is not about reducing or denying services, it's about focusing the services that we have for the students who truly need it. And 1 out of every 4 students is having a disability in Saddlebrook, which is simply not possible. In addition to our high classification rate, we sent nearly 17% of our students to other schools because due to the severity of their disability, we felt that for whatever reason we couldn't educate them here in their home school. Keep in mind, the goal of special education is to educate students in the least restrictive environment, which is their home school. And I'll also add that the typical placement, when you factor in tuition and transportation, is $80,000 per year for an out-of-district student. So from a fiscal perspective, from a legal perspective, and I'll even say from a civil rights perspective, the fact that we were segregating so many students in alternate locations, we really weren't, we could be doing much better. And we haven't after that. Bullet 2 is directly connected to bullet 3. Why were we sending so many kids out of district? Well, mainly we didn't have too many programs in district to offer them. We've changed that over the course of the past year as well. Here's some numbers. 13.1% is what the average school in the United States, the percentage of students they send to others, or they classify their students at. In Saddlebrook, we're at 24.24%. Which is significantly higher than the national average. When you look at districts with over 1,500 students throughout the state of New Jersey, we came in number 3 in the entire state. In Bergen County, we were number 1. Where we stand today, we're at 20.21%. I think 4% year over year is a significant decrease, and it shows that we're now focusing our services for the students who truly need it. So how did we get there? Number one, we improved the level of services for struggling students. In the past, special education was really the only avenue for students who were struggling either behaviorally or academically to get help. Over the course of the past year, the Intervention Referral Services team, which is a group of educators tasked with offering interventions and strategies to students who are struggling in the general education setting before they get referred to special education, has been vastly improved. There's regular meetings. The child study team consults with them, and that's really resulted in meeting the needs of students in the general education environment before they're classified, and reducing the number of referrals that we get. We've also completed more reevaluations and identified a number of students who no longer qualify for services. We have a very strong child study team right now, and they've done many, many reevaluations over the course of the past year. It's resulted in some students being reclassified. I've introduced departmental procedures to make better use of time, such as developing a standardized system for how cases are assigned to case managers and increased monitoring and evaluations, and increasing communication. We've improved instruction. I think everyone in this room can agree that we've really improved instruction in the district over the course of the past year and a half. I've been part of the Saddlebrook community for 7 years now. I've really seen a huge cultural change over the past year and a half in general education teachers' willingness to be flexible and meet the needs of students in their classroom as they're referring to special education. Additionally, we've improved evaluation procedures. Say nationally, about 70% of students who are referred for special education evaluation eventually are eligible for services. In Saddlebrook, we've been at about 90-95% over the course of the past several years. Last year, we were around 70%. So students who are coming to us are not necessarily going to special education unless they truly need it. And we've done that by relying on the objective use of data. That hasn't always been the case. We've really updated our assessments and looking at the students who qualify for services. We had a student who was sent out of district, and the data at the time really didn't support that decision. In fact, when the student was reevaluated less than 2 years later, it turned out she didn't present with a disability. So the district was investing nearly $70,000 in a student who did not need that level of service. And again, this is about focusing the services that we do have for the students who truly need it in the district. Added district placements. 7.4% is the average rate in which the New Jersey schools send students with disabilities to other schools. And keep in mind, New Jersey, compared to the national average, is relatively high. In Saddlebrook, we were sending out 16.5% of our students to other schools. During the 2013-2014 school year, we started with 65 students that were going to other schools. We started the 14-15 school year, that number was reduced to 49. 15 students may not sound like a huge decline. If you consider that the average cost of tuition is $80,000, that can be significant. And so how do we do it? Simply, we created a couple new programs. And like I mentioned in the previous slide, we've improved practices structurally and procedurally. And then I'll give you a brief update on the programs that we've developed. I think most of you are familiar with the transition program we developed in high school. It's a program for multiply disabled students who need direct instruction in vocational and life skills. When I used to work as a case manager in district, I took many families on tours of other schools, and the reaction was typically the same. It's a great school, they have good teachers, good resources, but my child doesn't want to have to transfer to a new school. This is where their friends are. Why can't Saddlebrook offer a program in the district? The answer is we can, and we are now. We also have the integrated preschool program in Washington. Integrated meaning that we have students with disabilities being educated and students without disabilities. In the past, it was only for students with disabilities. We had overwhelmingly positive feedback so far from parents, and the students are all showing growth. We got off to a bit of a slow start with the program in terms of enrollment, but as word got out about the program, and people began to hear the positive feedback, we've had an influx of students. We've had 3 enrolled in the past 2 weeks, and we're now at capacity. Neurologists and developmental pediatricians often recommend an integrated program for students with disabilities, and in the past we've sent preschool students to other schools because we didn't have an integrated program. That again is no longer the case. Other areas of improvement, it wasn't just those areas we focused on over the course of the past year, we focused on these other areas as well, including improved documentation. Like I said, we have a standardized process for a number of situations, such as the assignment of cases, monitoring cases, and documenting when a child study team member completes a suicide or harm assessment. We've increased communication. Special education meetings used to occur maybe 2 or 3 times a year in the district, everybody together. We're now established regular monthly departmental meetings in each elementary school, the middle school, the high school, the speech department, occupational therapy department, physical therapy department. We also have transition meetings between different levels. So in the spring, the 6th grade students, or 6th grade teachers met with the 7th grade teachers to talk about the students that were going up. And they met again in the fall too to talk about their transition and what they could do to help those students have a successful transition to middle school. And we've been successful with that. Last spring, I received a grant to provide Learning Ally to our special education students. Learning Ally is an assistive technology platform that provides audio books to students with different disabilities. We've trained all the special education teachers in its use. And we have an upcoming CPAC meeting later this month, so we can train teachers in their use. And that's on January 22nd. We've reconsolidated the Language and Learning Disabilities program. Rather than having the Language and Learning Disabilities classes spread out across the various elementary schools, we brought them to Smith School. That results in greater program cohesiveness and increased communication. We partner with Rutgers and the Department of Education to receive training on community-based instruction, which will directly benefit the students in the transition program. And finally, most recently, we began participating in Project Terra. It's a training program developed by the University of Nebraska and sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education to provide training opportunities to paraprofessionals in the district. And just moving ahead. It's okay. I put some things up here, but really it's building upon the work that we've done in the past year, improving the programs we've established, and continuing to look at new programs that we can develop in the future. We're actively in the planning stages of the behavioral disability program, hopefully maybe an autism program somewhere down the road, and really bringing the services to our students. And we can do that now that our services are focused and we have the resources. That's about all I have for my presentation. Try to keep it concise. Several people told me this would be a game on the sequence. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair, the first year with the integrated preschool week at capacity, do you see a need in the next few years to find a way to be able to increase capacity for that program? Or did we just take in pretty much everybody we thought we would and will be staying there?
Well, I think we definitely have the facilities to increase enrollment. I'm glad that the program started. We have 3 classes right now, 3 classrooms, and we have additional space at Washington School. I'm glad the program started out with the size that it is. It's really given us a chance to focus on the program and help build it up. But it's definitely worthy of a conversation somewhere down the road. At this time, I don't really have an answer. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
thank
Roth.
you again
Thank
very much,
much.
Dave.
Everybody, appreciate it.
I think it's important to point out too that everything that Dave is talking about really went into place, got rolling last March. So it has not been a long time. We've accomplished a great deal in a very short amount of time. So I think that's important to keep in perspective and how far we're coming and how quickly we're doing it. Thank you. Okay, so moving through the agenda into student services. Are there any questions on items 1 through 4? I know actually Dave provided a rationale for each of those. Okay, section B is curriculum. We have nothing on the curriculum this month. Both curriculum and policy have nothing, but that's part of our reorganization of our committees. So in next month and moving forward after that, we will have items, but we're waiting for our committees to get reorganized there. In business and board, section C, item 1 is a list of workshops and travel for our teachers. Just as a note for our new board members, any travel expenses for board members or staff members must be approved by the board prior to them occurring. There is a threshold of $150. If it's under $150, it does not need to be pre-approved. If it's over $150, it does need to be pre-approved. However, you'll see there are amounts that are less, some are zero. We just make a practice of putting everything on the agenda, regardless of the amount. Item number 2 is field trips. Again, this falls under the same category. All field trips are on the agenda and pre-approved before that they occur. We won't ever put the date and the location on an agenda at the same time, and that's really just a security measure. So if you require more information, we can always give you that, but an agenda will just list the students and the location, but we won't list a date on the agenda. Any questions on either of those two? 1 or 2?
Through the chair. On number 2, item 6, the course for Toro Day. Where actually did that take place?
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 3 is the approval of a new district insurance broker. Last month, we had the resolution on to allow us to go out and search for the broker. We're going to talk about this more in closed session tonight, and we'll have a name listed on Wednesday on the agenda. Just to give a little bit of background, we decided at the end of, through the budget season last year that we should look for another insurance broker just based on some experiences we had through that process. We interviewed 4. Mr. Quinn participated in all 4 of those interviews. Mr. Garrick was able to make them to 2, along with Mr. Karati and I. So we'll talk about that in closed session, and then for Wednesday, we'll list a name. Okay, number 4 is the approval of our district calendar for next school year. There's some quirks in our district calendar for next school year, so I just want to kind of go through some of the highlights with you and talk about the reasons for why what's listed on there is the way it is. So the way that it's laid out right now in the proposed calendar is that our new teachers would report for a 2-day orientation starting on Monday, August 31st. So it'd be August 31st and September 1st would be all of our new staff members. All of our staff would return on Wednesday, September 2nd. And then school would begin Thursday, September 3rd. So we'd have 2 days of school, September 3rd and September 4th. Labor Day is the 7th. Labor Day is the last possible day that it could fall. So the proposed calendar does ask to begin before Labor Day, which we wouldn't typically do. However, if we wait and start on the 8th or the 9th, then we push that last day of school way back. As it stands on this calendar, the last day of school would be Wednesday, June 22nd. So again, pushing that back makes it the 24th at best and the 27th at worst as the last day of school, which I think is really too late. So the 3rd and 4th would be school days. I did share this with the SBEA. I also shared it with our leadership team, and I also shared it with our PTA presidents for feedback. And one of the suggestions that was made was, again, because we don't typically start before Labor Day, was to make that Friday, September 4th, maybe an early dismissal day, so that if there's a holiday weekend, people can get out earlier on the holiday weekend. I don't know. I mean, we can discuss that. You can share any thoughts you have on that. To me, if it's something that makes things easier for people, that's fine. However, if we're thinking about it from an educational standpoint, you want to get into the school year, and you want to start your day, and you want to have your routines and let the year get going so everyone can get comfortable and acquainted. So I would say that we stay with the full days, but I could certainly understand why somebody would suggest that early dismissal. So we'll talk about that in a second. Let me just go through the rest of the calendar. Our early dismissal days for staff development, which we put in this year, we put in 5 of them, and they're listed exactly the same way in next year's calendar as they were this year. It would be October 19th, December 14th, February 8th, April 4th, and May 23rd. They're all every other month except for the end. We did April and May rather than having an early dismissal day in June. Our full days of staff development are also the same as this year. It's the teacher's first day that they report, September 2nd, Election Day, November 3rd, and then Martin Luther King Day, which is January 18th. Spring break is the other part. So it started with, I said there were a couple glitchy things. One of them is the first day of school. The other one is spring break. Easter is very early. Easter is on March 27th. So this calendar proposes that we have off on Friday, May 25th, have a 3-day weekend, and then have our spring recess 2 weeks later, the week of April 11th, rather than having spring recess the last week of March and then going the rest of the year with only Memorial Day being the only other day off. I was shared with me, I went back, when I developed this calendar, I looked at 5 years back. This didn't happen in any of those years, but it was shared with me that in the past, when Easter was this early, that this had been done with spring break before, so this wouldn't have been the first time. And that is it. I said the last day of school will be Wednesday, June 22nd. Any thoughts on that, on either the early dismissal, Labor Day, or anything else as part of the calendar? Okay. All right, and we'll leave it as is for Wednesday night. Okay, item number 5 is an approval of a nursing agreement with Nursery Rhymes and Tutor Time. We received money from the Department of Education where we're required to provide nursing services to private schools in town. So this is an approval, but it's really required by the Department of Ed. We have one of our nurses that goes there and performs screenings and checks their records. It's really a small number of hours depending on the amount of money that we're given. but it's a required approval and it's a required service that we provide to these private schools. Mr. Crowdy, can you talk about E-rate, number 6?
6 is an annual approval for our E-rate consultant. We get money back for technology, communications, and this is a consultant that files all the necessary paperwork for our school district so we could obtain those funds.
Questions? By policy, we have none tonight, so I'll give the meeting back to Mr. Garrett.
I don't believe we have any committee reports. We are reassigning committees tonight. I'm going to pass out those assignments. I got a chance to speak to each of the board members individually within the last 4 days or so. So I hope I pleased everyone with these assignments. These will be posted on the website as well, so.
You have to take a lead.
Dr. Katz, any correspondence?
Okay, well, just in committees, to go back to that, for a curriculum committee, I'd like to suggest a first date for us to meet. Please, I guess you can, through Mrs. Borali, please let me know if January 26th would work. We would meet at 4:30. That works for people? 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock? Sure, that would be fine too. January 26th at 5 o'clock. Just please send an email to Mrs. Borali, and if that works for you. Or we can look at it afterwards. Okay. That's for curriculum. Okay, correspondence, we had one item, which was a letter from our county office. Every year they do a mid-year budget review where they will, essentially they ask Mr. Crowdy for a lot of data on the status of our budget, and there's some educational questions that I respond to that go along with that. And it's a compliance and efficiency check. And after reviewing our mid-year status, they wrote us a letter saying that everything is satisfactory up to their standards. So that's something we wanted to share.
Do we have any old business?
Our goals update in old business. Our professional development goals. So we had our continuing our new teacher induction program, which we started this year. Today we had a meeting actually that coincidentally focused on special education strategies, and Mr. Rowe led that along with some child study team members. Our new teachers, and again we have 17 of them, but it's not 17 teachers necessarily. There are child study team members, counselors, speech teachers. So it's a variety of positions. They were able to talk about some of the successes and challenges they've had in their classrooms and serving special education students in their regular classroom. And really the idea was not only for Mr. Rowe to present on just general understanding of an IEP and some legal topics, but it was really a brainstorming session, a problem-solving session for teachers to be able to talk about actual cases and actual situations that are happening in their classroom so they can learn from each other and get some strategies also from the more experienced experts who were there as child study team members, special ed teachers, and Mr. Rao. So all in all, it was an extremely productive day. On January 19th, next Monday, we have a full day of staff development for our teachers. We're finalizing all the details, and that agenda will be out to our staff on Wednesday, by the end of the day Wednesday. But essentially, we're going to continue our work, which aligns with our goals of curriculum writing, well, training on curriculum writing, because that's really our first step. And I'll talk more about that after it happens. I'll give you more details, but we're ensuring that all teachers, not just teachers who write curriculum, but all teachers understand the process of curriculum creation, so that it's, typically what happens in many districts is teachers will get together as a committee and they will write the curriculum, and then it goes out to the rest of the staff. And that's fine. I mean, you really can't have a group of 40 people writing one document, but it is important that everybody has an understanding of the philosophy and the process that goes into creating it. So we'll be spending time on Monday really training everybody in what that process is. That'll be one half of the day, and the other half of the day we'll focus on another piece of it, but developing skills continuums for each of their content areas, and also, again, diving into the standards for their content areas. So it's really a continuation of the things we've done, just moving it to the next step in the process. For our security goal, I've been observing lockdowns in each of our schools, and there are some things that we need to do to adjust our procedures and get a little more consistency. Before we put anything in place, I am going to meet with Tom Johnson tomorrow from the Saddlebrook Police Department to make sure that we have law enforcement guidance into anything that we do. So I'll be reviewing some of the things that were observed with him, and then getting some of his suggestions and seeing if he's, if the police department would support, obviously, some of the things that we would like to do. So after that, I can share as much as we can share, because again, you don't publish all your lockdown plans in any place either. But just know that we are refining that. Also, in light of the tragedy in New Milford, where an 8-year-old boy was horribly killed by the cafeteria table, we are conducting walkthroughs in each of our schools. Actually, Mr. Crowdy started that today at Long School, and we're really focusing on aftercare and after-school activities. The event in New Milford, the incident in New Milford occurred during a rec program, and there are things that we know that, during the school day, there's a lot of precautions in place. And the cafeteria tables are a perfect example. They're all down during the day when school is in session. Lunch is over, kids leave the cafeteria, we put the tables up, we put them up against the wall, but then the building still gets used for aftercare, for other activities, and so we're conducting walkthroughs to really look at those after-school times for our aftercare program, which we run, and of course for rec, which are still our students in our community. So participating in those are Keith Siraki, our supervisor of buildings and grounds. Ray is leading that. Each building principal will be there, and Amanda Penna, who is our child care before and after care supervisor. And so we'll hopefully be coming up with, you can't prevent everything from happening, but again, I'm sure there's things that we can do to minimize our risk. And we'll be conducting those, like I said, in the next couple of weeks. Evaluations and observations. We had another goal to improve the quality of our evaluations and observations. On December 19th, our leadership team had the third of our 4 training sessions. This one focused on providing feedback to teachers. What we did is we watched videos together. And after watching those videos, we individually identified the strengths and weaknesses in the lesson, and then came up with a plan of what would we talk to a teacher about in a post-conference based on that video that was observed. And then we came together after doing it individually and talked about it as a group. I think there's already results from these sessions that we've had where we're starting to see that we're much more calibrated with each other this year than we were last year. And it's really just a matter of understanding the rubric better, but spending more time together. The principals have a new evaluation rubric this year too, and on January 8th, last week, we spent time talking about that, and we went through each point in the rubric and talked about what does that look like in your school, and what does that look like in your school, and as a leader, what does this, what does this criteria mean to you? And so allowing all the principals to not only talk about their practice, but to talk about what they're doing in their observations, we're really building a much more cohesive team. And when it comes to these evaluations and these observations, we keep talking about the district vision, and you can see that it's happening because people are all starting to think in the same way and hold the same standards and expectations for themselves and for the staffs in the school. And that's what we want. We want to know that there's continuity and consistency across our district, pre-K through 12, and we're starting to see it. So it's actually been a really great experience. And although this is one of our goals, and we talked about just having 4 training sessions as part of the goal, we were all in agreement that this is something we want to continue to do regularly, because it was really a great experience for everybody to be able to share what's happening in their schools, what's happening in their classrooms, and how they're moving ahead in their buildings. So even next year when we move on to other goals, this is going to be something that still continues to be a regular practice for our leadership team. The last one, is full-day kindergarten, our implementation of full-day kindergarten. Next week on next week is not January 14th. Wednesday night is January 14th. So on Wednesday, and we also had on October 10th, we had people come in to provide support for our kindergarten teachers on Teaching Strategies Gold, which is a kindergarten entry assessment that we're piloting. We're one of 5% of the school districts in New Jersey that were selected by the Department of Ed to participate in this pilot. And so we're coming in and working with our teachers on the data collection. There are 3 components to it: social, emotional, math, and ELA. All the information, the first collection was in October. The next one is coming up. Now they're collecting data all the time. They're taking evidence all the time. Teachers are assessing, taking pictures. Pictures count as evidence. So you take a picture of a student participating in an activity in your classroom. That's evidence of them completing a task, completing a standard. So the technical support that they're getting is really on the types of evidence, how to collect them, and then what to do with them. Already through our October collection, parents have been commenting that the information that they get back, and it's really, the best part about it is we've had parents who have been in kindergarten before, well, their children have been in kindergarten before, and then they have other children now, and they can see the difference in the kind of information that's coming back to them through this assessment and through this data. And obviously, for the teacher, the better they know their students, the better they can deliver instruction. So being part of this pilot has been a great thing. We anticipate that we will probably adopt this and continue to use it past the pilot period, just as a regular part of our kindergarten assessment. Tony Grosso, our principal at Smith School, has been leading the implementation of the Gold pilot. Christine Steiner has been leading what's called curriculum and instruction philosophy meetings of our kindergarten. In November they met and they mapped out all the standards that they'll cover through the winter. They brainstormed solutions to challenges, which really focused on trying to get students to be a little bit more independent and trying to implement centers into their classroom, which really go together with student independence. The December meeting, they talked about assessment, an update on the Teaching Strategies Gold. And with assessment, what they're trying to do is really align their assessment so that all of our teachers, again, as they talk about consistency, are looking for the same things in the classroom, measuring the same things in the same way. And they also started to look at the implementation of a literacy portfolio. And that's something that's come out of our assessment committee, which we started last year. We put on hold last spring to wait for our supervisors to come on board. Now, Christine Steiner and Chris Duval have started that up again. And the first place where we started was a literacy portfolio in grades K through 2. So that's something that all of these teachers, first our committee is working on, but when Christine met with the kindergarten teachers, she brought that up with them, and so now the kindergarten teachers are working as a team to look at what would be the appropriate measures within the kindergarten. Also, all of our kindergarten teachers have attended 2 workshops on the development of a full-day program, and that was something that was extended to us. It's run by the Department of Ed, it's free, and that was extended to us because of our participation in the pilot program.
Any other old business? Any new business?
Under new business, we have the 2015-16 budget development calendar received in your packet, item number 9. This calendar is a proposed draft of where we think we'll be at each month, at each phase of the budget development. This month, Dr. Katz and I will be reviewing the budget and having meetings with our administrators, leadership team, and then we'll start setting up dates with our budget committee, probably towards the end of the month, early February, and go through that for a good month and a half before a budget is presented to the full board. The only thing on the one bullet there, it should be the week of March 16th, not the 6th, on your proposed calendar, because the budget is due to the county office. The tentative budget is due March 20th, so that's a Friday. So, we could establish a meeting as we go on, probably sometime that week, the 16th or 18th, if we follow the Monday and Wednesday. And then then the county office will review the budget, get back to us, and then we'll have a public hearing and adoption sometime the end of April, early May. So this is a requirement to share this with the board and note it in the minutes. So if anybody has any questions with the dates, you can look it over, get back to me, but we'll set up those meeting dates.
Any other new business? May I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Any opposed? I'm going to read the statement. Residents are requested to state their names, address, and subject matter. In the event it appears the public portion of the meeting may exceed 45 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 5 minutes duration. Issues raised by members of the public may or may not be responded to by the board. All comments will be considered and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate. The board asks the members of the public to be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding students and employees of the board are discouraged and will not be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of the legal rights of those affected or identified in their comments and be aware that they are legally responsible and liable for their comments. Does anyone wish to be heard? May I have a motion to close the meeting to the public?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're gonna go to closed session. To recess the closed executive session to discuss personnel contract negotiations, pending anticipated litigation, and matters covered by the attorney-client privilege per NJSA 10:4-6, Open Public Meetings Act. The subject matter discussed may be disclosed to the public if and when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Action may be taken by the board when the board reconvenes in open session. I have a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you.